But speaking of teams that have, in my opinion, high-powered offenses, I think it's a good time to move on to the Indianapolis Colts. So the big thing that the Colts did this offseason, obviously, was signing Carson Wentz.
Yep.
So they brought and reunited Carson Wentz back with Frank Reich, his head coach, that he had an MVP caliber season under when he was in Philadelphia. Sadly, he did not win the MVP that year because he tore his ACL in like week 13 or 14.
Yep.
So ever since then, he hasn't quite been the same, but also Philly took a nosedive after that Super Bowl season. And so one of the big questions, in my opinion, was the downfall of Carson Wentz kind of his fault, or was it more just a product of being on a not as good team that just couldn't perform as well?
Oh, is that a question? I have no idea.
Well, that was kind of a statement for you to lead into, but it's okay.
I think a lot of it is, if you look at that team when they tore his ACL, and that was the year that they also won the Super Bowl, correct?
Yeah.
They had one of the best offensive lines that year, and I think their offensive line stayed healthy a majority of the year. And if you look at the situation that he's coming into, Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator, yada, 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 all that stuff. They, according to PFF, they had the second best ranked offensive line. And so they brought in Eric Fisher to help replace the loss of, I believe it was Anthony
Costanza.
Costanza, who retired. So it should be able to help bring that production. Arguably one of the best offensive linemen in their left guard, Quentin Nelson. And then they also have great dependable options in Braden Smith and Mark Gronkowski and Ryan Kelly to kind of fill out the rest of the line. They also have good depth as well.
Yeah.
So that's where I think he's coming into a really good situation as well. So not only with that offensive line, they also have a phenomenal running game. I feel another good prediction that we could have had for the Colts this year was Jonathan Taylor absolutely tearing it up, I think, this year. Especially if you look at the teams that are in their division. Jacksonville's not going to have a good defense. Houston is by far not going to have a good defense, and neither is Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could potentially compete with Derrick Henry for the rushing title because it's going to be a very run-heavy offense. Mm-hmm. Because they're going to be able to do it. They should be able to do it with ease with Jonathan Taylor, if I'm not mistaken. And now my computer's going a little slow. But Jonathan Taylor, pretty sure it was his rookie year, had over 1,000-yard rushings. He became the number one guy. It kind of took that away from Marlon Mack.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I wanted to kind of harp on a little bit was just the level of talent that's in that running back room. I mean, so Jonathan Taylor is after his rookie year, I mean, probably you could argue a top 10 back in the league. Then they have Marlon Mack, who before Jonathan Taylor made a rise was an RB1, 2 in fantasy. I mean, probably 1,000-yard rusher, 8 to 10 touchdowns. And then Nyheim Hines, who is one of the top receiving backs in the league. And so to me, they just have a really complete running back room with 3 guys, unlike the Houston Texans, who have a mishmash of guys of 4 guys. That we kind of talked about a little bit earlier in this episode. So not only that, I want to move on a little bit to the wide receiver group. I think their wide receiver group is slightly underrated, especially if you incorporate their tight ends. Carson Wentz had a really good relationship with his tight end, Zach Ertz, when he was in Philadelphia. And Mo Alley-Cox and Jack Doyle, while neither one of them is as good as Zach Ertz individually, I think together that they will be able to replicate the production of Zach Ertz very well. And then Michael Pittman Jr. is a second-year wide receiver out of USC that I am very high on. He's a big 6'4", 6'5" target that can move pretty well, but he's really good at boxing out DBs, especially smaller ones. And then you have T.Y. Hilton, who, when healthy, is a monster. And then they also have Paris Campbell, who hasn't necessarily been healthy his career, but when he's had some opportunities to make catches, he's been around and he's been a factor. So I really think that the Colts offense is set up to be very scary. And I think their defense can really only go up from what it was last year. They had some rookie corners like Rocky Singh, who is going to continue to develop. They did lose their safety, Malik Hooker, and that was kind of a loss. But I think their defensive line is going to be a lot better too. And that's going to kind of cover up for some of it.
Yeah, well, and that's if you have a good defensive line that provides consistent pressure, is something that we've talked about. It's going to take a lot of pressure away from the secondary as well. And that's where I think they have the Colts were very successful last year. Pretty sure they're still bringing back Deforest, Buckner, bringing back Justin Houston. They did lose.
Justin Houston's not there.
Oh, he's not there anymore?
They
okay.
Re-sign him. Yeah.
They did also lose Nico Autry as well, so that right there is 15.5 sacks that they will need to replace, which kind of makes sense then on why they went hard with Kwity Paye as their first round pick, trying to replace some of that lost production. So it'll be curious then. I'll just be curious then to see if they'll be able to replace that production. 15.5 sacks. Yeah. That's a lot.
They also drafted in the second round Deo Odeyingbo. So they have two young defensive ends. And then one of the things too that I feel like that they might be able to do pretty well with Darius Leonard is run some linebacker blitzes and
I think so.
Have him kind of pick up for some of that slack.
Yeah.
So
well, I was just saying. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you said it pretty well in our Tennessee Titans take. I think the Colts are probably the most well-rounded team in this division.
Yeah, I think so as well. And so I'm curious to see what happens with their defensive line, because if they don't provide as much pressure, then that can become an issue. However, they are playing with the Texans and the Jaguars tackles some fairly weak offensive lines. So hopefully they'll be able to get some good reps. But I think, though, with how high power their offense is and how well-rounded their offense is going to be, they might just be able to outscore some teams, something that we'll probably see similar to the Titans. Like, I'm looking at Phillip Rivers' stats here. He threw for 4,169 yards and only 24 touchdowns. I feel like Carson Wentz can provide a much bigger threat from the QB position, because the Colts, I feel like, were one of the teams last year where the QB spot was their weakest spot overall.
And another thing too that Carson Wentz brings to the table is his legs. I know he's had some injuries in the past, but Phillip Rivers was a statue. And he just got worse and worse as the season went on with his mobility and his arm strength. You could kind of see it decline. And Carson Wentz makes up for both of those things. And if he can just get back to the level that, even if he was at 3/4 the level he was playing at Philly, I think he's still an upgrade in that offensive system. So I think Carson Wentz could have 35 total touchdowns this year.
Oh, I think so.
With over 4,000 yards.
If Phillip Rivers can throw for 4,000 yards, I think Carson Wentz.
Yeah, that's true.
I think he'd do 45, especially with the overall talent that they have at the receiving core.
So 45 overall touchdowns?
4,500 yards.
Okay. I was like, 45 overall touchdowns is a lot.
That's a lot. But I hope they incorporate a lot of play action, because similar to the Titans, that offensive line is so good that Jonathan Taylor's such a great threat. Well, Jonathan Taylor was already a threat to begin with, but then combine him with an amazing offensive line as well. You're going to have to respect the run game. And so we're going to have to tend to put more guys in the box to protect that. And then when they do that, then they'll throw over the top of you because they have all the weapons, as you were saying. So I think they're the best team in this division. What record did you have for them again?
So I also had them as 12-5, the same as the Tennessee Titans.
Okay.
And they have very similar schedules. I just have them playing more or losing less conference games, which gives them the tiebreaker. Okay. So they have a very similar schedule, obviously because they're in the same division, to the Tennessee Titans, but their teams are more spread out. So the Titans had that stretch of 4 games where they played Bills, Chiefs, Colts, and then like the 49ers or somebody. So like the Colts, like week 2 they play LA, and then week 3 they go to Tennessee, which is tough. But then like they have a few easy games, and then they get to San Francisco in week 7, and then a few other games, and then they play Tampa Bay in week 12, and then they play New England in week 15, and then it kind of like their schedule's much more spread out. And so I still feel like they'll end up losing 5 games, but I don't think that they'll have that stretch, like that gauntlet
Yeah.
that Tennessee is going to have to go through, and I think that's going to play in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
They won't have just a month of torture, pretty much. So,
Yeah.
But 12-5 was my prediction, and I think that's, I might be underbidding a little because they may squeak out a win, like they may beat Buffalo in Buffalo, or maybe they'll beat Tampa Bay at home or something.
Well, and that's where that's hard to see. Those
Yeah.
games are hard to project, obviously, because we're projecting both of them to be division winners. So it's going to be really tough to see. I'm just curious to see how quickly it is before that Colts offense starts to mesh together, because it is a new system for Wentz, and I think he can be extremely successful in that. And so, not trying to take away from anything that I've already said, but just with anything, when there's a transition, it takes time to just get used to the system. And training camp should be coming up here soon, so it'll be interesting to see all the reports.
It's either next week or the week after is when it starts. So.
I thought I heard today on ESPN that it was 11 days away.
11 days? Okay.
Yeah, I believe, but double check me on that.
That's exciting. Countdown.
Countdown. Well, and especially I think the NBA Finals will be done within the week, or within a week from now. So it'll be. I think when that's done, then it's going to be a full ramp up to the football season, because that is right around the corner. Actually, training camp, if it goes 7 games, training camp should start almost the next day or the day after. And not too many people are really following the MLB just yet. Normally, that comes around playoff time. It comes in September to see who's going to be making the playoffs. So, but by then the NFL will be started and it'll be in full swing. So. It's going to be a fun couple months. We're doing the season preview for all the divisions. We'll be finishing out the AFC on Tuesday. What day is that? The 19th? No, the 20th, I think.
Yeah.
We're doing the AFC West on July 20th, and then we'll be going into the NFC. And we should end that before the season starts. So, but we do appreciate you guys listening to us today. Once again, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can hear the ding whenever new videos come out for us. Please tell all your friends that you like us or that you hate us. Either way, just make sure that they watch it and comment on your overall thoughts on the video.